Really looking forward to today because our guest today is Jeffrey Wotherspoon. Now, Jeffrey is an executive career coach with accreditations from both the International Coaching Federation, the ICF, and also the Association for Coaching. So Jeffrey is PCC credentialed with the ICF and also professional executive coach level with the Association for Coaching. And he's also an organization relationship systems coach, which really attracted my attention when I saw that on his profile. And not only is he an international trainer and conflict resolution specialist, but he has recently just joined the TCA associate training team. So I am just so excited. Jeffrey's going to be delivering training on our corporate and executive coaching diploma. So those of you that are training for that diploma, you will experience Jeffrey's fantastic training. Now, although Jeffrey works with senior executives and organisations worldwide, his background, which we're going to find out a little bit more about today, is in his extensive experience in the criminal justice system. And over the years, he's worked with, many of the frontline organisations and with some of UK's most vulnerable young people who some of them were involved in gangs, some in county lines, and some, serious youth violence. So he works with them as well as working with adult high-risk offenders. But so you can see he uses his coaching skills to support people that potentially may not be able to access coaching through our, let's say, usual or sort of the routes that we would perhaps gain our clients. So it's an area that I've really found interesting, and I've particularly invited him to talk to us about today. So lots coming up. Please do make sure you have your coaching notebooks or digital pads or however it is that you take away, because there are going to be some major light bulb moments for you today. Now, I have listened to Jeffrey speak many times, and it is now my privilege to welcome him onto Coaching Conversations. So, Jeffrey, officially, welcome today. So excited and pleased to have you here today.
Wow, thank you, Sharon, and what an introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Happy to be with you all today, and hope we have a good time.
Well, we certainly will. We certainly will. Now, can I ask you, those people that join us and listen to Coaching Conversations regularly, know that I sort of start with a couple of questions, really. And with your permission, I'd like to do the same. So I wonder if I could ask you, what was your motivation for training to be a coach? Because it's so different for everybody. So if you wouldn't mind just sort of starting there and a little bit about your journey into coaching.
Yeah, definitely. And those listening to the introduction might have thought, wow, his experience is quite vast in terms of wide, from the exec to the young people in gangs and prison, etc., and county lines. So there's a mix there. And for me, like I think most people on this call, probably 90% of coaches, coaching is a vocation. Right, it's something we do because somehow we've come across it, we've seen its benefits, its power, and we want to use it to do good. So my story, I guess, is a life story in terms of I grew up in inner city London, and if I'm to summarize, I would say I wasn't headed the right way. Now, through a series of events, I was fortunate enough to find myself on the right track, and I felt as though I had a second chance at life. And I just remember one particular occasion thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And then so many people that I'd grown up with, so many people, ex-friends, etc. They all came to mind. And I thought, so many of us are going down the wrong path. Now, having grown up in particular environments and lived a particular life, there's many reasons why people go down the wrong path. For me, I thought it's what life had to offer. For some reason, I grew up with a schema that said everyone's been dealt cards in life, so this is the hand I've got. I'm not gonna get a proper job or something. My life should be on the streets. So I thought, actually, just do the best I can on the streets, try not to hurt people, etc., and live that way. And I realized that wasn't true. But then, without speaking to anyone, I kind of got the impression other people were following suit. They were living that life because they thought that's what they have to do or that's their only option. So I initially set off to help and to say to people there's another option, because when I really realized that for myself, it was a no-brainer. If I've got other options in life, I'm going to choose them. So that's the inception, and it led me to youth work, etc. And through that youth work, I was working with the highest risk, so the ones with the most needs, the ones who are in gangs, ex-prisoners, etc. I loved that work because I really felt as though I was making a difference, and I was actually getting results. It was quite shocking to see. I'd work with gang members, gang leaders. They would come, the gang would be disbanded. So many people that I worked with changed their life. And the interesting thing is, I was working with 16 to 25-year-olds. Around this time, I was probably around 22. So, I was working with peers and even people older than me. And through that work, I just started to believe that this is what I'm supposed to do. And and because I believed that this is what I'm supposed to do, I thought, well, I guess I need to do more. I was looking, it's not to say I was looking for a bigger challenge, but I was working in the community, I was seeing results, but at the same time, I was in a team as well. So other people were doing what I was doing. And results may not have been the same, but I kind of thought to myself, there's probably a greater need somewhere. So in my mind, I thought, where can I go and find the worst young people in London? The ones that not everyone can work with, the ones that people think there's no hope or there's no option for, because I feel as though perhaps I can meet that need. And what came to mind for me was prison. They're probably in prison. Um, I guess the difference between the community and the prison work is I could relate to people in the community even through my own story. I hadn't been to prison. So then I thought, okay, I know I need to go and work in prisons, but the relatability factor won't be there in the same way. And then I received coaching. My line manager was training to be a coach, and that now we use the language insights. I didn't have that vocabulary back then, so I thought it's like magic. I was like, what the hell just happened in my head? Right? Some stuff has happened that's come out of me, and I don't know where it came from, but my life feels like it's changed, but nothing really has changed, right? So that was the power of the insights I got through coaching and just the clarity. And I just thought that's exactly what I want to do. So in my mind at the time, I thought, yeah, when I grow older and I get a few grand, I'm gonna do a coaching course, I'm gonna volunteer in prison. But life has a way of working. And within a few months, I got gifted the place on a coaching course. So, yeah, I got gifted the place. And then I started volunteering for a mentoring organization in prison. And I had one client, which was a profound experience. For my goodness. And that solidified for me. This is exactly like I know I'm supposed to be doing this work. And then shortly after that, and because of the work I was doing, and people sort of knew, a charity called Spark Inside was being founded. And I guess through their exploration before they actually started, my name came up a few times. So then, I met with them, and then they said, "Look, when we start, we'd love you to apply for us." And that was actually my first freelance coaching job. So that's how I first got paid as a coach to do that work. Spark Inside still exists today. I'm their head coach. I'm still with them. My capacity's changed a little bit with them. And then, if you started by saying I'm an exec coach, leadership coach now, etc. And what happened is through connecting with Spark Inside, I met other professional coaches, and I was the only one that came from a youth work background. All of them came from a corporate background, and they exposed me to the corporate world, and just the potential there. So, while I was working in the prisons, I was also, I guess, pursuing that other path, and that's how my portfolio is a mixture of both now.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an inspirational story. And I don't say that lightly because everyone's story is inspiring. What came up for me when you were sharing that, Jeffrey, is, you know, you were young. You were a young man. I think you said, when you were doing some of the youth work, some of the people you were working with were older than you. So you were about 22 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was an unconscious thing or whether it was conscious, but there were some natural sort of gifts and some natural, and we now know them as insights, of curiosity about people and knowing that actually we can take responsibility for our lives. We can, if we lift our heads and lift our horizons, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Yeah, it can be hard when you're dealt with a particular set of cards, but it doesn't that doesn't have to be how the story continues and ends. But if you invited your pre-coach self into the room now, that young man, what would be the one thing before you were coaching, before you knew what coaching was? Maybe you were doing it but didn't know what it was. I don't know. I mean, you can choose how old you invite into the room. But what would be the one thing you would say to Jeffrey then, the young man, the boy, or what question would you ask him?
I would say be yourself. Now that I understand can sound very simple, but I say it like in my mind that is so deep and profound because of, I guess, the journey I've been through. In that becoming a coach wasn't the path I set off for, and a lot of coaches didn't look like me, plus my background, etc. And not even having that corporate experience, but I found myself sort of going on a particular ladder, and the whole time it was happening, I thought it was by mistake, it was by chance, it was by luck, right? And whenever I would get opportunities, I would be who I thought people wanted me to be. This isn't necessarily in the prison works. Prison work, I thought be myself. This is more down the corporate ladder. I was trying to be someone else, and in 2022, I think it was. I got asked to do. I'll make this story brief, but it was hugely profound for me, so it might make sense why I said be myself. I got asked to do a keynote. Now, the context of me being asked to do this keynote is I was a facilitator on a leadership program, and these group of leaders had seen me facilitate two modules, and and then the leader called me to their organization. So in my mind, I thought it's because of the content I was delivering, that's why they called me to the organization. But when I'm having the briefing call, they're just telling me about the problems their department's having, etc., and it didn't seem related to the content. So I said to them, like, I just got some clarity, and they said, "Oh, we've kind of called you to be a motivational speaker, an inspirational speaker, just to lift people up." And I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's not necessarily subject knowledge. So I said, no problem. And yeah, that was an extremely challenging event for me, just because people recognize it as imposter syndrome. So even though they called me, I thought they'd made a mistake somehow in my mind, right? And I went and I tried to be someone, I tried to do something, and I got decent feedback and stuff. People were saying thank you, etc. But I knew within myself, I thought this wasn't really me. So I had a supervision. It's not. I thought to myself, this isn't. I didn't. Sometimes I deliver, and I'm like, yeah, I think only I can do that, right? And then I delivered, and I was like, this felt random. Anyone could have done what I just did. So I I I had supervision, and I brought it to my supervisor, and I was trying to find some tips and tricks and techniques to I don't know, wow a crowd or something, right? And thank goodness for the supervisor, because she kind of looked at me and said, "What's going on there?" And she asked a few questions. Then she said a question like, "How do you think they see you?" And then I said, "I think," and again, I still appear young to people, right? Younger than I actually am. So I said, "I think when I get on stage, they look at me," and there was a few hundred people at that keynote. So I said, "I think whenever I get on a stage like that and they look at me, they think, who's this young black boy there, and what's he got to what's he got to offer? And I'm still thinking about like my previous life and everything, right? And this is years later. And she she kind of like got a bit sad, but then she said, "But what if it's something else? What if they saw you as an amazing young black man, and something just happened in that moment?" Because it's like all of a sudden it came as clarity again. All of a sudden things started to just make sense, and I realized that one of the leaders who had seen me twice spoke about the way she commented on what I was delivering in the leadership module. It wasn't so much the content; it was more my stories behind the content. It was more my approach. It was more me. And then I
Mm.
started to like all the dots started to connect, and I thought all these opportunities, because my career path has been quite unconventional. It's really been one opportunity after the next. And I thought all of these opportunities have come not necessarily because of what I'm doing, but somehow because of me, how I'm approaching the situation, how I'm showing up. So I started to see the value in myself and own that differently. And then my life changed because my life was on a really positive diagonal trajectory. It was just going like that, right, from strength to strength. After that supervision, it stopped and just went vertical, right? Like I felt as though things were just popping out the woodwork, but the floodgates really opened, and it was reflected in the work I was getting and in the finances I was getting, and so much. And it was just like, be yourself, and that's now my number one. And I think if I was myself, it would have been a lot less stressful for me as well. And just logically, rationally speaking, I can only really be myself. Trying to be someone else is quite stressful anyway. So yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'll tell
thank
myself.
you. Well, I love that, Jeffrey. And it reminded me of a podcast that I listened to. I can't remember which one it was now. It might have been the High Performance podcast, but they were interviewing Pippa Grange.
Mm,
And she does a lot of work on sort of fear and culture and, that type of thing. And it was something that she said that it is, when you have those profound moments,
mm,
and it really resonated with me when you were just talking about being yourself. And she talks about, are we performing in life or are we living life?
mm.
And when we stop performing and we take off the mask and we live life and we step into who we actually are, that's when the magic really happens, isn't it? So when you stepped in and owned who you are, that because that's what people wanted. But doesn't it just show you the power of supervision?
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. And I know there's a
Oh,
lot of new coaches here, and I would say, as a coach, I thought supervision was something I had to do, and I didn't really respect it. But I've had many profound experiences. So if you don't see the value in supervision, I'd say trust the process and just try to change the way you see it. I guess, the narrative you have around it, because supervision can be hugely profound, and you get out of it what you put in.
yeah, 100% align with that. Before we dive into the work that you do or you
Yeah.
have done, because I know, as you say, that the percentage of the time that you can dedicate to that has shifted slightly. So before we dive into that, you've already mentioned about working, and you have a huge portfolio of organisations and clients that you've worked with, from healthcare to local authorities, from banks and financial institutions, right up to the US Air Force.
Mm.
It's incredible portfolio of clients that you've worked with. What would you say, and I think you started to allude to it actually, but what would you say would be that golden thread that sort of runs through a lot of the work that you do with these big organizations?
Um, Say some more about the golden thread, Sharon, because my mind's going in two different places. There's
Oh, well,
there's me, golden
let it
thread
take
me,
you.
and because when you say golden
For,
thread, I kind of think is it who am I in all of those places, or what's the similarities between all those organizations?
well, why don't we explore both? Shall we explore you and then explore the similarities in, maybe why they engaged your services? What was the common
Yeah,
pain point?
yeah, okay. A lot of those big clients came after 2022, after I had that experience which I just described to you. And I just knew I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but I found my USP, my USP being me. I just thought I have experience, I have value to offer, and I can just show up, and that's when it'll be best. And then I think with that comes the authenticity, and it boils down to human connection. So I think that's something that I think I'm bringing that so many people aren't bringing, if I'm honest. I
Right.
think so many people are still in performative mode. So
Yeah.
so they're using knowledge, experience, etc. Whereas though I'm showing up using life experience, I'm not even trying to be an expert. You know,
Mm.
I might call myself an expert on a bio because that's how you might market yourself. But I'm never gonna show up and tell people I'm an expert in that sense. You know, I go with me, right? I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything. So I think just the authenticity, and ability to be comfortable in myself and show up is the golden thread that causes the work to repeat and branch on. With regards to pain point, um, so my portfolio is big, and I do different work with those organizations. What I would say is I think the first links, this is how I see it, and this is even how I see the coaching. I've come to the belief it's not so much about what you do, but how you do it and who's
Mm.
doing it, right? So I think the thing about any trainer is two different people will give the audience a different experience. So it's the how they approach that is part of that experience, and it's who the person is that gives that experience. But they're both training the same content. So I've started to focus less on the what, think about the how, which is my approach. I think just authenticity, humility, curiosity. You mentioned that. I think is a wonderful
Yeah.
approach. And then who is me? And I just try to show up in the best way I can in service of the client rather than myself. And that's another thing. So when I go, the focus is no longer me, but you, as in you, the client. And that's why, even before this podcast, I said, Sharon, what do you want for this podcast? What's your aim for this podcast? What's your aim for the people that you told me the aim for the whole coaching experience? And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be in service of me. I say I'm gonna be in service of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm totally in alignment with what you're saying because I often say, and I'm sure people who have listened to me train and coach have heard me, on my hobby horse about this a lot. There's no point being a bland beige coach who is a cookie cutter of everybody else out there. And I think it's pretty
mhm,
much what you said, but in different words.
yeah,
Because, there is a coach for everyone, and for everyone, there's a coach. But if we all
yeah,
coach in the same way, because we've been, spat out of a machine and we feel like we have to sort of coach in this gingerbread cookie cutter way, well, we're doing ourselves a grave disjustice because we're not stepping into who we truly aspire to be. We're not doing what lights us up in the way that it lights us up.
yeah,
We're not doing, coaching in the way that Jeffrey coaches. We're not doing coaching in the way that Sharon coaches.
yeah,
And we're doing our clients a disservice because they're not getting what they need either. So I absolutely love that. So in alignment with what you're saying. Um, do you mind if we talk a little bit about the the work that you've done
not at all.
with young people? Because I mean, as I say, I've heard you speak a number of times, and every time you've spoken about it, it's been so inspiring. And you've gone, you've sort of used a different sort of journey each time. One of the things I have heard you speak about is the concept of the hero's journey.
Mm,
I wonder if you might expand on that a little bit, but also sort of talk about the work that you do with vulnerable young
yeah,
men.
no problem. So For the prison work, I'll talk primarily about my work with Spark Inside. Spark Inside is a
Yeah.
charity based in England, London, and they work with young men in prisons between the ages of 15 to 25 in London, the Southeast, and they expand into the East Midlands. So I've worked in every London prison apart from one called Thameside, which is private, and a few prisons in Kent as well. I've been with them since 2013, I think, when they were starting. And I actually delivered their very first hero's journey at a prison called Wormwood Scrubs. So I got a very long history with them. What they do, of course, aligned to my path and mission in life. So Spark Inside hire professional coaches to deliver to young men in prisons. And we have worked with young women, but there just aren't that many young women in prisons. So you work with them, then they run out, which is a good thing in a sense. So they will work with young women, but it's not a focus because they just aren't the numbers. Um, they hire professional coaches to go inside the prisons, and we first start off with the Hero's Journey workshop. And the Hero's Journey workshop is their flagship program. They have a few other programs. Um, and I will explain the Hero's Journey workshop. After the Hero's Journey workshop, the young men, and there'll be 8 of them in the adult institute over 18s, and there'll be 6 young people in the young offenders institute, 15 to 18. Those are the group sizes. After the Hero's Journey, those who attend can volunteer for one-to-one coaching. And then it's 2 facilitators to a program. Afterwards, they volunteer for coaching with either one of the facilitators, and that coaching is inside prison and through the gates. So, in an ideal world, most of the young men will have 6 months until release before they engage in the Hero's Journey workshop. So, we kind of do the workshop, do some coaching inside, do some coaching outside. So that's the context. The Hero's Journey workshop is not unique to Spark Inside. Some of our attendees may have heard of it. It was designed by a gentleman called Joseph Campbell, who I believe was a social anthropologist, and I also believe he helped. It might be Matt Lucas do Star Wars the film using the Hero's Journey framework, but essentially, it's a framework around change. And the story I understand is Joseph Campbell went around the world, remote places, built up places, as many cultures as I guess he could reach. And the one common thread he found was what he termed being the story of the hero's journey. Now, if you Google it, you find a template, and some of them might have 7 stages up to 13. I really don't know how many the original stage had, but Spark Inside used a 7 stage template to do the hero's journey. And people will recognize it in a lot of films. So if I just explain the stages quickly, you first start off in your ordinary world, and the ordinary world is just the world that you live in. And then you get a call to adventure. If you accept the call, then you cross the threshold, which means you're leaving your known world into an unknown world. And then there are 4 more stages. There's the test, fears, enemies, and allies, stage 4, death, ordeal, rebirth, stage 5, claim the reward, stage 6, return of gift, stage 7. So if most people think about a film that they like, they might find that it follows this pattern. In real life, you don't always accept the call, stage 2. If you don't accept the call, you basically go back to your ordinary world, right? Now, there are 3 types of calls you can have that anyone can have, and this is the way we use it in Spark Inside, right? Because we use it to talk about change. So there's
Yeah.
the change that happens to you. Going to prison is a change that happens to you. Losing a family member is a change that happens to you. Um, there's those type of changes, and they can be called like the slap in the face. Then there's the change that you decide to happen. So what I should say is, there's a change that happens to you, then the change that you can choose. The change that you can choose, there's 2 types. Sometimes it comes in the form of an opportunity. So again, using the people in prison, maybe they're in a gang, but they're also a musician, and then they get signed, which happens in reality and a lot. Um,
Yeah.
that person may then leave the gang life and be a musician, a rapper or something. So that's the opportunity call. And then the final change, which most people here may resonate is the still small voice. And that's the change where you tell yourself, I should be a coach. I should be a coach. Maybe I should be a coach. Maybe I should leave my job and be a coach. I want to be a coach. And maybe that voice speaks for years and then eventually you decide to do it. So those are the types of free calls. And again, they always come. If you accept them, you go on a journey. If you reject them, you stay in your ordinary world. So that's what I'll say for now. If you've got any further questions, please. Oh, what I should say is that's the template. And that's what we will introduce the young people to in workshop one, help them to understand it. Then we get them to see their life through the lens of the hero's journey. So they begin to see almost their life outside of themselves, almost like an observer of their life. And they can begin to see which stage they're at, which stage they want to get to, and understand things that have happened in their life and how that cycle is played. Because it can be said life is a hero's journey, and throughout life we go through mini hero's journeys because you can really put any change into that framework. So that becomes hugely profound for the young people. Of course, they've never done anything like that before. That's what catches them, engages them. Throughout the process, we look at beliefs, we look at values, we look at strengths, we look at qualities, we have life discussions. So it's really helping them, and so we facilitate, but we're all coaches, so we're using coaching methods to facilitate. So it's just a profound experience for them where they gain huge insights. Plus it's the group dynamic. It's a bit like AA, where you find other people in your situation where you can all relate, and that in itself creates its own magic. So these prisoners often come without even knowing each other, and then they find themselves relating on deep, profound levels. And we regularly get tears. And if you know anything about prisons, especially as a young man in prison, tears are not something you do, right? Because everyone wears a mask, etc.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah,
but we build that safe space where the vulnerability comes out, the human comes out, the tears come out, and yeah, the prison love it because it stops violence as well. You bring 8 people that don't know each other who happen to be in the same wing, and then they more or less leave best friends. So it has huge impacts for the prison as well, plus the young men. And then, as I say, after that whole experience, they opt for coaching.
and the coaching continues after they leave prison. Is that right?
Yeah, it's voluntary. But if they
Okay.
if they choose, as in it's voluntary for them.
Yeah,
The staff get paid, but they opt for it.
yeah,
They don't have to do it. It's not part of probation or anything. And Spark
yeah,
Inside has been intentional in not making it mandatory, it being self-directed
yeah,
in its truest sense. So
yeah.
yeah, if they engage, then and yeah, I'm currently working with one young man from prison. I met him at Brixton Prison. Still coaching him at the moment, and there's 2 young men who well, there's at least 2 young men, but these two especially, I'm very close with them, and I've known them for over 10 years now. So we've long finished our coaching relationship. But they, in my view, I'll walk with them as long as they want me to. And
Yeah,
2 of them I work quite closely with. There's probably 8 in total I touch base periodically with and just
yeah,
support them through life.
yeah. I mean, it's such incredible and powerful work, and using the gift that you have, maybe the gift that other people have in the room, actually for and always in service for others, because otherwise, I believe we shouldn't, this is the should word, shouldn't be coaching if we're doing it for ourselves. But we all choose, to do things for various reasons. But just in that moment when you were talking there, actually, what came up for me was when you said, yeah, it's voluntary for the young person to continue. They have to choose to continue to engage. So again, that's another hero's journey, isn't it? Because they're choosing. So that's the
Definitely.
opportunity. So the opportunity is you can continue to work with the coach that you've made this relationship with inside of prison, and now your hero's journey again, you've got another opportunity, and so it sort of starts again almost.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And it was interesting. So I know James Clear from Atomic Habits, and there's
Mm,
a lot of research around, we become who we surround ourselves with. And he was
yeah.
saying, if we want to continue the habits of the person that we want to become, if you like, then we need to ensure that the people that we surround ourselves with have similar habits or similar aspirations, because otherwise we get rejected, right? And we get sort of like, well,
Yeah,
what are you doing that for? That's a silly thing to do. So it's much harder for those aspirations and those new habits to continue unless we change our circle, we change the people that we're engaging with.
yeah,
And I guess by your continued interactions with those young men long after the coaching engagement has ended,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
that it's that touch point, isn't it, to sort of, whereabouts are you, what are you doing, that aspirational work that that you're doing there, and them going on to have completely different lives. I mean, it is incredible work,
I
very
mean,
inspiring.
thank you, Sharon. And look, that's the exactly like I've been shocked by some of the things that happen. And so the prison population aren't the typical population, right? A
Mm,
huge percent of them have grown up in care, meaning they don't have parents, right? Or their parents aren't the ones looking after them. And for many of them, and I use that word in its truest sense, for many of them, when they interact with me, I am the one positive voice in their life, literally
yeah.
one. So they're up against it. Um,
Mm,
one of the one of the people that I'm engaged with totally changed his life. Um, it was it was last year that his mum was telling him she didn't want someone to be around anymore, and wanted to know if he could help her, right?
wow.
And he's changed his life. He's changed his life hugely now. In the past, and for many people, your mum asks you to do something, you know, that's your mum. So,
Yeah.
okay, mum, I've got you. Because sometimes they'll do it for their friends, but but my point for saying that story, because that happens, is he's changed his life totally. And despite all of that, his mum still felt to make the request.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the impact, the ripple effect is probably well beyond any of us would ever comprehend or even be able to understand. That sort of, and even the people that you're working with, Jeffrey. I mean, ultimately, the ripple effects not just on their life, but on the lives of those people that they engage with in the future. Maybe they go on to have families, etc., and that all of that understanding of things can be different if we choose it to be. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be just because you've been dealt those cards. It's tough though. It's hard, right? If we think about young people today, it's not easy. It's not easy for young people, whether they live in an inner city or whether they live in a smaller town. We know with county lines and everything, that a lot of young people are being touched in ways that are really detrimental to their life chances. Um, would you say that the Spark Inside work that you do is that sort of quite unique, or are there other organisations that are doing similar work? Do you know?
I knew Spark Inside to be the first
Yeah,
doing it at its level.
yeah,
Um, I I've heard of an organization called Coaching Inside and Out, which is north of England.
yeah.
And I know them to be doing coaching in prisons. But I'm not sure if they've got the workshop element or if it's just straight direct coaching, which I think it may be. So there are quite a few organizations with interventions in prisons, but coaching young men in prisons, I know to be almost uniquely Spark Inside.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
as I
yeah,
say, people might be starting, or people may have
yeah.
started.
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed for our young people today. And what I find incredibly interesting is that,
Sorry,
the
Sharon. I've just seen
yeah.
someone's also mentioned Stand Out, and I do know Stand Out. I know them well actually,
Yeah,
and I forgot them. And again, I think they might be like coaching inside and out, where it's they may just do coaching, and I'm not sure the scale of Stand Out. Um, yeah, but Stand Out do some coaching in prisons as well.
Yeah, so there are other organisations that
Yeah,
are doing it, but maybe not in the same way as Spark
yeah,
Inside. Yeah, because what I was going to say was that what I find quite interesting is the hero's journey is a change model.
mm,
And it just goes to show how we can take models and use them in different elements to support maybe different clients that we're working with. I noticed that somebody had sort of shared around, they were so inspired by how the hero's journey works that they're sort of going to go and do a little bit of research into how it might be of value to secondary school students with the risk of permanent exclusion. And I can really
yeah,
see
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah,
that could work. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Powerful. I, I, I I'm just going to ask because there's just so many questions that I want to ask you, but
Mhm.
I'm going to throw it over to you. In as much as where do you think would be the most valuable for us to go next in this conversation?
Oh, okay. Um, you know, I suppose I've spoken about the work I do. I probably haven't, and I guess I've spoken a little bit about the impact, but maybe I could speak more about the impact because that's the
Yeah,
work we do, and it's what's the impact. Um, so yeah, should I share?
please do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do.
Yeah. For me, to date, coaching is what I believe is the most powerful intervention in prisons at the moment. If there was an intervention that was had better results, let's say, I probably would be using that. But I know coaching to be a hugely profound impact, or to have profound impact. And I guess it's the self-directed method. So many interventions, and this isn't a criticism because I don't believe there's any silver bullet. And
Mm,
there's so many interventions that work. So it's not a criticism, it's an observation that so many interventions are based on imparting knowledge and telling people what to do. That
yeah,
generally doesn't work so well in life anyway. It's more a person's credibility that helps, they give advice, then you follow. But the typical prison population tend not to listen to advice. They tend not to listen to authority. The one voice they do listen to is the one in their head. And I
yeah,
believe that's why coaching is a powerful intervention because you're really getting them to tell themselves what to do, but you're clearing the dust. You're giving them a space to reflect, um, and a space to be curious, and you can ask curious questions, which helps them dig deep, and then they come to their own conclusions, and that's quite powerful. So many instances. I remember, and I'm not sure. How long have we got? Because there's
we got about 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Unfortunately, but yeah,
a
about five
story
minutes.
just came to mind, and I'll share this story to give an example. I went to see a young man in prison. It was maybe the fourth session, and I just noticed he was a little bit different this session. So I'm asking him, "Are you okay?" He's saying, "Yes, I am," but I can see something's off. So I ask him again a little bit later, "Are you okay?" He tells me someone owes him money. Now, in prison, you just have to watch a film to know that that has so many repercussions. For example, if
Yeah,
you don't let this person pay you, then maybe other people think, wow, we don't need to pay this person, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if he's violent towards that person, there's risk of retaliation. There's also risk he can be
yeah,
moved off wing. He'll be put in seg, but they might move him back to another wing. And moving wing is like moving home, right? So your community, everything's set up on a wing. So he feels stuck between a rock and a hard place. So somebody might go in and say, well, find another way. It's not good to be violent. Think about all the consequences, etc. But they live by different laws in prison. They really do, right? So I used the circle of influence, control, and the wider world, Stephen Covey. It just came to mind. I drew them. I explained it to him. I said, "Do you understand?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So you getting your money, which circle does it fall into?" He said, "A circle of control." I asked him to explain it to me, and then I was prompting him. So I was like, "Okay, so you beat him up, and he doesn't give you your money. What do you do?" okay, you get other people to beat him up. He doesn't give you your money. What do you do? I said, okay, let's say you kill him. How are you gonna get your money then? And he was stumped, right? Then it clicked. And then I just said to him, you getting your money is not in your circle of control. Everything you do is influence. But picture this. What if he hasn't even got your money? How can you get something from him if he hasn't got it? So it all started to make sense to him. Um, and then I just said some things which I knew, and I said, look, if he doesn't give you your money, it's not that, you're a fool or you're being walked over, because these were all of the things running through his mind as well, because pride is a big thing
Yeah.
there. I said, you could never guarantee you get all your money. Everything you can do is influence. All of a sudden, his disposition changes. And from someone who was saying to me, I need to get my money, there's no way this can run, just says to me, you know what? I'm going to let him have the money. um, I'm not even gonna go to him anymore. And furthermore, because he always comes back to me, so he's gonna lose out in the long run. And furthermore, I'm not gonna give anyone anything on credit anymore. If they haven't got the money to pay me straight up, they're not gonna get it. He just problem solved so many future problems, because so much problem in prison is from debt. And it can be debt through
Yeah.
illegal stuff, but it can be debt through tuna cans, right?
Yeah.
But they work on that currency, and he just sorted that out for himself. So again, that's how coaching helped him come to his own conclusion.
Yeah. And again, it just shows you how diverse the coaching industry is, because you took a model that, we all know as coaches, and you took it into that particular situation, which was incredibly powerful as you took him through the process of that. And again, his life changed as a result. Oh, Jeffrey, I wish we had more time. It's just been incredible. I've enjoyed it as much as I knew I would. Um, I'm gonna just sort of ask sort of one question. Is there, just to sort of finish on, and I'm going to ask everybody in a moment maybe to write something down. If there was one thing that you perhaps wanted, sort of begin with the end in mind, sort of purpose and outcome, someone to take away, the coach is listening right now, either live or on the playback, what would that one thing be that you sort of really hope that people would take away from today's conversation?
Um, I would say, especially as so many of the coaches are new, but I think it's good for experienced coaches to remind themselves that that it's the person that makes a difference. It's us who make the difference, our approach, rather than what we do, rather than the coaching skills. The coaching skills help. I'm not in any way diminishing that. But I know, being a coach, I focused so much on the coaching skills, even the model. And then sometimes you get stumped if you find yourself in a situation where the model's not applicable, right?
Yeah.
But actually, just showing up and thinking about your approach as a coach, and who you are and how you can be in service of that client, I think does all the work for you,
Yeah.
in addition to the
Love that.
models. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. And as you were saying, bringing your whole self, trusting yourself, it's the person that you are authentically, and holding
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking away for sure. Everybody listening, please write down something that you are taking away from Jeffrey's rich conversation, because there's just been so much in there. For me, I think, the thing that's spoken loud and clear is to really trust in being our true authentic self, the presence and the curiosity and the vulnerability of being who we are, I think is so important. Jeffrey, thank you so much. Where can people find out a little bit more about you, and maybe even connect with you if you're open to that? Where do you hang out?
No, I hang out on LinkedIn. That's the only social media I've got at the moment, to be honest. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Jeffrey Wotherspoon, my name's the spelling of my name's there. So yeah, and you can check out my website, which is just jeffreywotherspoon.com as well.
Oh,
And yeah,
fantastic.
feel free to get in touch.
That would be lovely, because I know that you do such really fantastic work. I think it's shared on the screen, but I think I've got a little word cloud. So those of you that are still with us, we'd love to know a little word that describes your experience from today. So if you scan the QR code and maybe just share one word that describes your experience before you do log off today. But thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jeffrey, for such a rich conversation. Really, really enjoyed it. And officially welcome to the Coaching Academy. I'm looking forward to getting to know you even better as you continue to deliver sessions for us on our corporate and exec coaching program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sharon.
And please, pleasure. And please connect with Jeffrey on LinkedIn or on his website as well. Thank you, everybody who is just sharing their little word for today. Thank you for joining us as usual. We're back again next month. Remember, it's the 1st rather than the 2nd Tuesday of the month, so 2nd of September. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like it, please share it with other people and let other people know, because as I say, it's so important for us to raise awareness of how powerful and how diverse coaching really is. But from me and Catherine, from the whole team here at the Coaching Academy, and again, thank you to my fantastic guest, Jeffrey Wotherspoon. Thanks very much, everybody, and see you next time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.